Why are you so quiet? Don't be so sensitive. You're no fun. Has anybody made these comments to you? They sure have to me, and they do so because I'm a highly sensitive person, and most people don't understand sensitivity, and therefore they don't accept it. So if that was you, stick around. We're going to talk about what it means to be a highly sensitive person and over 50, because when we were growing up, the term didn't exist. Hi, my name is Mira Benson, and welcome to my channel, HSP Holistic. We are here to explore life in the second half century as a highly sensitive person, a life that honors sensitivity and our spiritual impulses as well as sovereignty, whatever that means to you. So what does it mean to be a highly sensitive person and over 50? Well, in this video, let's talk about that. We've been around a while. We grew up in the 70s. We know what's going on. So yeah, the term didn't exist when we were growing up. If you grew up in the 60s, the 70s, or the 80s, there was no highly sensitive person trait. It comes from sensory processing sensitivities. It simply means our nervous systems are more finely tuned than other people's. Therefore, our experiences, both external and internal, are turned up in volume and impact, specifically on our nervous system. This term, this trait, was coined by Dr. Elaine Aron in 1994. I was well out of college by then, and later she created an acronym that describes the different qualities of this personality trait or nervous system trait. You may have heard this before. The acronym is DOES, D-O-E-S, but I'm going to talk about it in terms of someone who is 50 or 60 years old. So the first one is D. D is for depth of processing. This is the real gem, the real golden jewel of being highly sensitive, is that we deeply process. And that might make someone say, why are you so quiet? Why are you so slow? Because we're taking our time in the nuance of things. So when we were growing up, I know I got to spend a lot of time outside and a lot of time alone. We didn't have technology and digital devices. I remember TVs going offline and there was nothing but static after a certain time. So we grew up in an era where we had time for that depth of processing. Parents weren't hovering around children all the time. We had time to be alone. So that was something that we're typically supported in. Perhaps you grew up in a chaotic home and that would have been even more stressful for you than a kid who's not highly sensitive, because that impact of the intensity of your home environment is felt even more strongly. But the depth of processing is of value, and now we live in this hustle up hurry culture where we don't have time for your thinking things through deeply, so we can start to feel a little bit out of sync, a little bit awkward, a little bit like, oh my gosh, what's wrong with me? So that's the depth of processing. The second letter in the acronym DOES is O, and this is the biggest challenge of being highly sensitive. This is overstimulated or overwhelmed easily. So when we're taking in such a rich volume of input and we're experiencing so much internally, it's easy to get flooded, to become overwhelmed. So we need to take breaks. We need to hit the reset button. We need to have quiet time to relax. We need to journal. All of these different tools and strategies, they're not a luxury. It's part of our own self-care. E is empathy or an emotional sensitivity. So I want to make a distinction here, because not everyone who's highly sensitive is an empath, although empaths are oftentimes highly sensitive. The difference to me is that an empath is somebody who experiences another person's emotions, whereas a highly sensitive person is aware of another person's emotions. They're not actually inhabiting those emotions, but they are aware of them and can certainly feel them. But the difference is between experiencing it for yourself or just being very well aware of it in another person. But either way, being aware of other people's and your own emotions, that emotional sensitivity, is also a real gift. But when you're around really emotionally intense people, or really people who are not emotionally intelligent, it can be overwhelming and draining. So those kind of play together. And then S is the final letter in the acronym, and this is for sensory sensitivity. This is where the lights are too bright, the sweater doesn't have the exact right texture, so it's distracting me. I have to go home and change, if that's ever happened to you. And so when you understand this profile, and that it is a personality trait, or I like to say a nervous system trait, it's not a disease or a diagnosis or a disorder. I'm going to make another video about all that. But when you're someone who's been around for many decades, 50 plus decades, you grew up in a world where the term and the understanding highly sensitive person simply didn't exist. And so as you reach this phase of life, it's a real opportunity to reestablish sovereignty over how your nervous system operates. There's also a need for a lot of reframing. I found out about the trait highly sensitive person really just a few years ago, maybe 4 years ago. A friend who I have seen hundreds of concerts with, we've traveled all over the world together. She called me one day and she's like, I'm a highly sensitive person, and I think you are too. See, I still use old phones. And I said, tell me more. And she told me about it. She had had a really big reaction to a situation, and to her reaction was much bigger than the situation warranted, and it upset her. She wanted to understand why. So she did some research and came across the term highly sensitive person and started to look at the trait, and she's like, oh, that's me, and it's also you. And so she called me and let me know. So how did you find out that you're a highly sensitive person? Maybe you're just finding out right now watching this video, and if that's the case, welcome home. You belong here. It's okay to have a sensitive nervous system, and there's a lifestyle that you get to create and cultivate for yourself with that sensitive nervous system. You have a lot to contribute in the world, and you have a right to do what you need to do to take care of yourself. And so that's what this channel is all about, is that lifestyle for someone in midlife plus, who is discovering, like, I have a sensitive nervous system. I can and I need to do it differently in order to thrive, and let's figure out how that is. So as you reflect on your life, there's going to be reframing. Oh, now that I recognize that I'm a highly sensitive person, when I look back at this previous situation, now I understand it. And that's what we want to do. We want to be reflecting and reframing so that we can move forward in a more integrated and holistic way. We deserve to have this in our lives. So please, in the comments, I would love to hear from you. When did you first find out you're a highly sensitive person? Share that story if you are inspired to do so. And if this is the kind of exploration you're into, then I want to invite you to subscribe to the channel. You can hit the bell to get notified when videos are coming out. And we're going to talk about all this and how to really unmask, dive into your creativity, live an authentic lifestyle, and really feel this sensitive, spiritual, and sovereign is home base. It's where you belong. So welcome home. So glad to have you here. Thanks for being here, and please stay tuned.